Great. So we're ready to start our webinar, which is called Networking to Get a Job in Canada. And our presenter is Javier Vinson. And Javier is the Diversity Advisor for the Alberta Accountants Unification Agency. And he has a lot of experience with evaluations, recruitment, and working as a diversity advisor for the Unification Agency. And he works with people from around the world every day. He helps people with their resumes, he helps them to network, and he gives presentations constantly. So he's in a great position to talk to us about networking to get a job. And before Javier starts to talk, I'm just wondering if you could fill out our little survey about why you're interested in this webinar on networking. And while you're doing that, Javier is going to take the screen, and he is going to show us his desktop.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Hopefully this all goes well. I'm now sharing my desktop, so hopefully everybody can see the presentation that's come up.
Maybe we could ask people to raise their hands if they can see it.
Sure.
Looks like people can see it. That's great.
Okay, so yeah, if you can see the Networking for Success presentation, I guess I'll just launch right into that. So thanks for the introduction, Marie. I just want to expand on that a little bit in who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I think through Evaluations Coordinator role, I learned a lot about international transcripts, so I understand very well the education people are bringing to the country and how that might transfer to a Canadian credential. Secondly, I did recruit for a number of years. Granted, I was recruiting for accounting, but recruiting is recruiting. So we were looking for quality talent. And I think I have a very good handle on what employers are looking for. And then lastly, in my most recent role as Diversity Advisor, that's a subset of a greater skill set in career services. So yes, I do a lot of career services activities, as Maria mentioned. So this presentation, I hope you're going to take some things away from it. It is about networking, obviously, which is kind of a subjective topic of conversation, but I'm hoping you take some things away from this that you might not have known before. So being a stats guy who graduated in economics, I do like to kind of prove my theories with some stats where possible, but some of this is subjective. So I do like to kind of start with a did you know? I want to know from the majority of you, if you can raise your hand to answer this, do you agree with this statement? Studies suggest the majority of jobs are found through networking. So if you agree, why don't you just go ahead and raise your hand on that topic? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it looks like about half of you are in agreement. Okay, now we're getting to the majority. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you did agree with that. So if you agree with that premise, that the majority of jobs are found through networking, this really should become a real part of your job search on not necessarily an everyday basis, but it should probably be front and foremost in terms of your job search. Now, as far as referrals go, hopefully you do agree with this statement. To dig a little deeper into it, if you do a little bit of research on these stats, if someone internal, so they're working internally for the company you would like to apply for, and they refer you directly to a hiring manager or the person who's the hiring decision maker, you actually statistically have an 80% chance to get that job. So this is a true statement. An example I would give you is in oil and gas in Calgary. Lots of the bigger oil and gas companies actually run referral programs for their employees. So if you refer somebody and they're successfully hired, guess what? You actually get a bonus if that person is retained for a period of time. So they are very heavily referral based in some industries. So that's really what networking is all about, is getting the referral to help you get a job. These are the 3 takeaways I want you to actually take away from this presentation. So if you're going to remember just 3 things, these are the 3 big things I'd like you to remember. So first off, why is business networking important? I think everyone has a general idea what it is and why it might be important, but I really want to show you kind of at a high level some real tangible reasons why it's important. Second thing is I want you to set realistic goals for yourself. So the ultimate goal of networking is, yes, get a job, and once you have a job, expand your network to pursue additional career opportunities. But I think some people are really hard on themselves in terms of when they first start networking. And I want you to kind of maybe back up the bus a little bit and set some realistic goals for yourself. Thirdly, this might be a little bit difficult today. Normally, if we were in an in-person workshop, I would definitely not let you out of the room without doing some networking. But I do want you to, in the near future, try some of the networking skills you learned today. Okay? So those are our 3 big goals. So first off, I don't know how many of you right now feel like you have a fully developed business network. But in terms of your comfort level, I think if for whatever reason I left my current role, I can very quickly leverage my network to find another position. That would be the first thing I would be doing. So if you consider networking like an ever-expanding puzzle with your piece at the center, you're going to be growing this over time. Now, maybe by a show of hands, how many people feel like they have a fully developed business network and could leverage that network to find a relevant career opportunity in a short period of time? So one of you, Eunice, says she could leverage her network. So just one of you, okay. So I'm going to assume that's why you're participating in this presentation. Okay, maybe you're newer to Canada, you don't feel like you yet have a fully developed business network. I would love to actually know, and just to put you guys at ease, granted I work for the accounting agency, but this isn't an accounting-specific presentation. If you could tell me in 2 words in the chat box, what's your career area of specialty? So mine, although my job title might be diversity advisor, I would say my career specialty would be career services. So I'd really like to hear from you guys and just kind of know who we're dealing with in the room in terms of, give me a 2-word title for what type of career you'd like to work in, even if you're not working in there right now. I'm not seeing it. Okay, training consultant, that's great. Recruitment, okay. Physician, a lot of different industries represented here. Accountant, there you go, Sarah. You and I are on the same page, but okay, so I'm getting an idea, a lot of different backgrounds here. Instructor, sustainability consultant, these are great. So what you have to do, obviously you are all from different industries for the most part. You're probably going to obviously want to be networking with different people. So another thing that we have to look at is exactly what is business networking. Oh, excuse me, I skipped ahead. Let me just back this right up. Apologies for that. So, sorry about this. There we go. We're back to where we want to be. So, if I were to ask you what's the definition of business networking, everyone might have an idea, but when you actually look it up, there's not a textbook definition. So this is kind of a summary of what I found from sort of all the definitions. These are what I thought were the best parts. So it is definitely about people, and it's about people who share similar interests or concerns. We're going to dig into what that might be. And informal contact, well, you might have an idea what that is, but we'll get a little more specific on that. And then probably lastly, and most importantly, is mutual assistance or support. So let's look a little more into this. It's about relationships. Ultimately, networking is about one-on-one relationships where you build up a rapport, you build up some trust, and ultimately what you want your network to do is learn of your skill sets and start sort of promoting you to potential employers as well as refer you to jobs that they see. So that's where the informal contact comes into play. So informal contact is you're taking somebody for a Starbucks or Tim Hortons coffee, picking up the phone and actually calling somebody, or potentially sending them an email or potentially a message on LinkedIn is something I would consider informal contact. Mutual assistance is probably the key word in that last sentence there. Mutual assistance is not you approaching your networking contacts and saying, hey, can you help me get a job? It's building up a rapport with them first, telling them what your skill set is so they know exactly what your skill set might be, and then making them comfortable enough to kind of put their neck out on the line for you and actually refer you when they see a job opportunity. So I want to now show you a video from Working Culture Online called Making Your Own Network. It's a little bit long, but I really like the story because it does show how a gentleman was experiencing some frustration in the job search, and he actually used networking quite well. If you want to look at this video, you might want to jot this website down. Marie referred these videos to me, and they're throughout the presentation. Go to www.workandculture.com. So I will warn everyone, unfortunately the file is a little big, so we weren't able to upload it. The video may be a little choppy and there may be some delay, but I think the audio, even if the video is not perfect, you'll still kind of get the point of what the gentleman was doing. So let's just take a look at that.
If you don't have a network, make your own. I told myself I want to work for this amazing company, and after I finished, I applied online and no one got back to me. Actually, after 5 months to be exact, I decided to change my strategy and see what else I can do. So I took my resume and went straight to the company office. My company is a big company. We have more than probably 30,000 employees. So when I got there at the front desk, I told them what I'm there for, and they told me to go online. I decided, no, there's no way I'm going back. I want to see at least maybe someone who's actually hiring. So because I knew before, I have done a research about the job and what really my job is about, I knew that the guys who are actually in my department or in the department I want to work for park their vans at the back of the company. I met this technician at the parking lot. I introduced myself and I told him I'm looking for a job as a service technician, and I asked him who the supervisor is in charge for hiring a service technician. He gave me a name. I went back to the front desk and then I asked for the supervisor. I didn't know him. So after 10 minutes or so, a gentleman showed up. Fortunately, he had a tag on his shirt. Then I knew, okay, this is the guy I was waiting for. And I saw him look around, and then I raised my hand, and then he approached me. And he asked me what I'm here for, why do I need him? And then I told him that I was looking for a job as a service technician, and I've already applied online, but no one has gotten back to me. So I was wondering if you can look at my resume. I have it right here. If you like it, well, we can take it from here. If you don't, then I might as well go and find another job elsewhere. So he took my resume, he went inside back the office. 15 or 20 minutes later, he came back, and then he said, my resume looks good. So he said, are you free tomorrow to come for an interview? I said, yes, I'm free tomorrow to come for an interview. And then I came for the interview tomorrow, the next day.
I'm going to pause that there, and I'm not sure why my other slide keeps popping up, but basically to summarize what he did, and some of you may be able to empathize with this, he applied for the job online, and he was qualified for the job, but he didn't even get a call back for an interview. And I talked to many students and members in the accounting profession. They come up to me, they're like, Javier, I've sent out 200 resumes and not got one call for an interview. So, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. So what he did, he identified the individuals who were working in the same profession that he wanted to work in, which were the service technicians. He talked to them. He then figured out, okay, who's the manager or the person I need to get my resume in front of? Because I know if I can bypass the online application process, I have a really good chance to get a job if I can just get my resume in front of somebody, and actually talk to that individual. So that, to me, was a little bit of, we'll call it aggressive networking, and it did work out in his favor, and perhaps he was a little lucky, but I think bypassing an online system is key here. So having an internal referral essentially is kind of what he got. He got a referral to the manager, and it did work out in his favor. So even though he applied online for that job, and you guys are probably doing the same, and I do suggest you continue to do that, the success rate of applying online is going to be low. So let's look a little bit more into sort of the job market. I really like the iceberg theory, and I liberally borrowed this from cultural sessions where they talk about visible and invisible cultures. Some of you may have seen this before. I think it applies really well to the job market as well. So looking at the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg here is sort of the advertised jobs that everybody can see. So anything you can find on Google, Indeed, Workopolis, job sites, companies that run job boards on their websites where it's not hidden behind a login. Everyone can access this. So this part of the job market is open to everyone. It's highly competitive. A lot of people are applying for these jobs. And a lot of bigger companies use online applicant tracking systems to screen out applicants and basically limit their final interviews to the top 10 or 20 percentile of people who apply for that job. So if advertised jobs you see are here, let's dig a little deeper into this theory. If you guys can, in the chat box, give me a number, throw some numbers at me. What do you think? What percentage of jobs are never posted or advertised? And I know you could pull up a window and probably Google something and find it, but just off the top of your head, what do you think? What percentage are not posted? Marie says 80%. Sandra, 60%. We have any more opinions on this one? 60, 60, 50, 90. Yeah, well, potentially. Let's just agree that it's the majority, okay? I don't see anyone posting a figure below 50%. So if that's the case, we can safely say the majority of jobs are not advertised. Here's what I found. So across all industries in Canada, over 70% of jobs are never advertised. However, who said 90? Fitzgerald, you were correct. In some industries, it can go as high as 90%. So those type of industries that are very closed off, I feel are probably more the senior managerial positions in bigger companies. I feel there's probably no way they're going to hire, for example, a CEO or CFO without some sort of referral comfort zone. They may shop externally for a senior level position. However, generally once you get to a certain level in your industry, you will find you're leveraging your network for opportunities. So looking into the bigger picture here is your hidden job market. So if we're all in agreement that the majority of jobs are hidden, the purpose of your network is to actually get you in there, into that hidden job market. So digging a little deeper into this is quite important. So the big question is, okay, Javier, I get it. I want a network, but how do I actually do this? How do I actually start getting into the hidden job market? So hopefully I can give you some tangible goals, but first of all, we have to establish what is the importance of networking. And there's three things involved here. First is you want to be considered when a career opportunity in your network arises. So an example I'll give you is from my own personal position. I'm not currently in job search mode, but when I was looking for jobs in education, evaluations, HR, not-for-profits, that type of thing. And an engineering friend of mine actually sent me an opportunity at an energy company. And he's an engineer, but he saw an opportunity in his HR department, so he sent that opportunity to me. Why? Because a lot of companies have internal job postings. So even if your network is not all the exact same like-minded professionals as you, they might send you opportunities. Second thing is you need to set a positive impression with the people who can basically influence the hiring. So in my case, before I came on with the accounting profession, I worked in logistics in the transport industry, and I worked with a gentleman. His spouse actually worked for the company that I currently am employed with. And what happened was I was searching for a job, but I didn't really think this was an opportunity I'd be interested in, and she kept basically harassing me, saying, Javier, this evaluations role is great for you, you'd be a great fit. And she talked me up to the hiring manager. So by the time I got to the interview process, the hiring manager had a very good picture of who I was and what I could do, and she also had a lot of favorable background about me from my colleague's spouse, who had been kind of talking me up to the hiring manager. So lastly, we're going to actually get to a hierarchy diagram where I'm going to show you in very tangible terms what is the value of networking in a couple of slides. First off, we need to look at how people search for jobs. Now, I'm hoping you guys all agree with this, but let's quickly go through this. What do people do? When you need a job tomorrow, next week, whatever, as soon as possible. First thing you, me, everyone tends to do is we tend to go online. We tend to start looking at advertised jobs. So that would be getting up in the morning, firing up your laptop, and while you're drinking your coffee, you're kind of browsing through advertised jobs. Maybe you have a few saved profiles where you're searching for keywords and key terms, but essentially you're kind of competing for the same jobs that everyone else is. The second thing is the mass mail out of resumes. So we in HR and Career Services have a name for this, and this is actually called the shotgun approach. And the shotgun approach is where you see any type of attractive looking job. So one of you mentioned earlier in the chat you were interested in being an accountant. So let's say that individual took their resume and applied for every single accounting job they could find. That's the shotgun approach because you're spraying a lot of, in this case, resumes, and you're basically hoping for a callback. The third one is more in person, obviously, dropping off resumes in person. So actually going down to that organization's place of business. Hopefully you're engaging the reception or the person greeting you in a positive way, and you're dropping off your resume in person, or maybe you're asking, okay, is there anyone here who could look at my resume, and are you currently hiring? Employment agencies can be useful, depending on your field. They are probably more well-connected than your average job seeker is. So what employment agencies do is they give you an aptitude test, and then they will try and place you into a relevant either short-term contract or hopefully a full-time role in a position that fits your skill set. Finally, people will actually start talking to friends, family, colleagues, instructors, classmates. So they'll actually start to, maybe through their job search, desperation increases over time. So they'll realize, oh my goodness, okay, I really need a job now. Maybe I should start leveraging my network and see what happens with that. And then statistically speaking, the last thing people do is actually go dress up professionally and attend a networking event. So hopefully you agree with this, and maybe you can relate to this in terms of your job search. I'm going to make some suggestions in terms of the return on investment of your time. I honestly believe if you reversed all of these steps in order, you would probably have a lot more fruitful job search. Now, let's look at the other side, which is how employers hire. So first off, employers, first and foremost, always will look to promote from within. So generally, a lot of companies have a 2-week period where their internal employees get first chance at that job. They send the job posting out internally before it goes outside the company, so people working there already have a chance to apply for it. Second thing is, the hiring manager may say to their employees, because there's a level of trust there, okay, do you guys know anybody? Can you refer somebody for the role? Such as what happened in my case before I came on with the Accounting Association. The third thing is, the third and fourth ones actually do kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of together, but I separated them out. So the people looking to hire for the role might think of their own network and say, who do I know that might be qualified for this? Or they might contact colleagues in industry for the role. So if you contact, let's say, for example, you were hiring for an accounting role at, say, Encana, and you knew a really good accountant working over at Shell, well, you might pick up the phone and call that individual and say, hey, I think we're a really great company to work for. Are you interested in having a conversation? Even though that person may not be actively seeking for a job, if you're doing really great work for a company and you're sort of on LinkedIn and you're connected in your network, you could potentially get poached by someone else, or an opportunity could come your way. Finally, the fifth thing is review unsolicited resumes. So if we go back one slide to, if you recall, the shotgun approach, where people would mass mail out resumes, all these other things have to happen first before that unsolicited resume will even get a look. And then lastly, if they can't find a suitable candidate for the role, a hiring person, HR manager, will finally post the job online or advertise. So why does this occur? Well, first of all, any company is interested in their bottom line, and it costs money to do this final one. I would say all 5 of these first steps do not cost the employer anything except for some time. So I have a strong incentive as an HR manager to maximize my hires in the shortest period of time with the best possible candidate without it costing me money. And as another caveat to that, typically these individuals will get a bonus for retention if they hire great candidates. Posting online, you're sort of posting to everyone, you never know what you're going to get. With the first, I would say 4 in particular, there's some comfort level there for them in particular because they're getting a referral. That candidate is probably more likely to stay in the role. So finally now let's take a look at the value networking proposition here. So employers are over here on the left, and they're moving up this pyramid towards the top. Job seekers, you, me, everyone else who might be looking for a job, we're all trying to work down this hierarchy. So this is really a hierarchy because the first one, the advertisements and the recruiting, that to me is very synonymous with the advertised job market. And then everything in green, I would honestly consider to be the hidden job market. So what you have to do to leverage yourself into the bulk of jobs in the green sections is get involved with your professional organizations and make sure you're known there. Start to leverage your network. If you're in a role that is not necessarily your dream job, but it's with a company that has opportunities for advancement, you can look at internal promotion or maybe making a lateral move. And then, of course, contacts from existing staff. So talking to people who are working for the companies you would like to work for. So I feel this gives you a very tangible visual idea of what the actual value of networking is. Everyone seeking jobs is all competing for this little tiny segment of jobs at the top, where when you want to be is actually down here in the green, the hidden job market. Now, we're going to look at another video quickly, and again, this is from Work and Culture Online. I'm assuming you're all in job seeker mode. So what I'm going to suggest is we'll quickly watch this video, and actually, in the interest of time, I think I'm going to skip this video, only because it's really about professionally taking phone calls, and I'm going to assume people can kind of come to that conclusion on their own. So looking at making you successful for the job. So I'm going to get to the how to network in a second. First of all, if you're prepared, you'll be more confident. Now, what can you do to prepare? Let's say there's a career expo or some such. Here's some quick advice on what you can do for that. Everything you need is going to be in a Padfolio. Do list off your companies and questions in advance of the event, so you should be doing a little bit of research. Do create for yourself business cards, and in a couple of slides I'm going to show you some samples of how to make yourself a business card. And of course, take some notes, and you never know. So I'm going to suggest to have sort of one generic copy of your resume if you do attend a career expo. You never know where someone might be asking for that, but I think business cards are more convenient. So let's quickly look into some business card samples. All right, I'm in job search mode and I need to find a job. I'm not currently employed. That's okay. It doesn't have to be a job title on my business card. So if I were an accountant, I redacted the names for privacy. This person is quoting their degree credentials, so they have a Bachelor of Science Applied Accounting, and they're kind of giving 3 key skill areas, so bookkeeping, accounts payable, accounts receivable. That gives me a very clear idea that this person's probably looking for an entry-level type accounting role, and then they have their contact information on the card. Another card, again, a sort of professional direction, if you will. That's not a job title, but he's basically saying I'm a finance and accounting professional. I have a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting, and some simple contact information. And then the last sample I'll show you is this card is interesting. I want people to quickly look it over, and can you, in the chat box, identify for me what is a little bit different about this card? What jumps out at you? Does anything jump out at you from this business card? Yeah, Marie has answered social media, so she's correct. The gentleman has created a custom LinkedIn URL, and he's actually put that directly on his business card. That's actually not a bad thing to do, because a lot of HR managers hiring people will actually, once they see a resume or a business card, they will actually go take a look at your LinkedIn profile. And then on the back of his card, he's basically given his 3 areas of specialty, so accounting, treasury, financial analysis. So anyway, you guys can probably tell from my network I meet a lot of accountants, so that's why their cards are my samples. This gentleman's a little more senior level than the other individual who was looking for more of an entry-level role. So we're going to get into the how to network very quickly here. A lot of things do help create a good first impression, which is quite important. A negative first impression is a lot more longer lasting than a good one. First off, the handshake is critical. Granted, we can't exactly practice this over a webinar, but we're going to look at the handshake a little bit. How you introduce yourself, so maybe you've heard of the elevator pitch. the questions you ask at a career expo can be quite relevant, and as well your appearance, so dressing professionally for the situation. So we're getting into the sort of making a first impression section here. I'm going to quickly suggest to you the handshake is critically important for networking in person, because everything does start with the handshake, and subconsciously it does make a quick impression. I'm going to quickly skip past this video in the interest of time. This is a comic I like called The Oatmeal, and it's kind of poking fun in a sarcastic way at bad handshakes. And I think people need to be aware of this, because when I'm out and about networking, I still continue to receive bad handshakes, and I really shouldn't. So the first one, gentlemen, this typically falls on you. You are the bone crusher who applies too much pressure when you're shaking someone's hand. Don't do that. Apply firm pressure, but not bone crushing. This one typically, the limp or dead fish, which the slide was popping up earlier, but now you're seeing it, is typically a thing that I will say, okay, I've seen a lot of ladies do this. They just kind of present their fingers in a limp way and don't have a good firm handshake. It sends a message that either you're not really engaged with the person, or you're not too confident and you don't actually really want to shake their hand. And just a few more, the politician is the type of guy or girl who will grab your hand firmly with both hands and shake vigorously. They come on a little too strong. They never let go. Well, how much time do you really want to spend shaking someone's hand? You'll make them uncomfortable if you're sort of latching onto them and never letting go. So there's a lot more we could look at, but really what I want to say to you is who should initiate the handshake in a networking or job interview situation is subjective. You have to read the situation. So in my case, if I were in a job interview, I'd try to make somebody comfortable and I would initiate the handshake. If it's at a career expo, don't expect a recruiter who will probably talk to 100 people that day to shake your hand, but do feel confident enough to walk up to them and introduce yourself and shake their hand. Some quick tips for a good handshake for you is do maintain eye contact. That's important in North America. The webbing of your thumb and forefinger should meet. Just a few pumps of greeting, and then you can smile and engage in conversation. The elevator speech, I'm going to really quickly blast through this in the interest of time, and the reason I'm doing that is I have a full presentation strictly dedicated to the elevator speech. So if you like this presentation, perhaps you can let Marie know, and a follow-up could be the full elevator speech presentation. But the premise of this is a quick 30-second introduction where you have an individual in a networking situation where you have 30 seconds to 1 minute to quickly introduce yourself. The premise of this is you want to know your goal. So why are you talking to this person? Ultimately, okay, maybe you're talking to them to get a job, but you can't just come right out and say, hey, can I have a job? You need to know your goal. So are you looking for a business card? Are you looking for a meeting? Are you looking for a coffee or informational interview? Second off, obviously show your enthusiasm. If this is somebody you really want to talk to, you do have to show some enthusiasm in meeting them. Do show some conducted research. So I'm assuming if you meet somebody or you're at a career expo and you meet an individual at a company, you've looked at that company in advance and you kind of have some topics of conversation, some brief background, and really this is really quick. I don't think it's going to be any more than a minute or two. Now, here's a very quick sample of an introduction elevator speech. Hello, my name is John Smart. I completed my Bachelor of Commerce and majored in accounting. While I was at school, I participated in the accounting clubs and the student newspaper. Now I'm interested in starting my career in the area of financial analysis and internal auditing. What jumps out at me of this introduction is a couple things. He's hitting his relevant education that's relevant to the role. He's showing some extracurricular and volunteer activities. And as well, he's giving a very targeted statement of where he wants to work. So he's not just saying, I want to be an accountant. He's saying, I want to work in financial analysis and internal auditing. So for your own job searches, I do recommend have a targeted statement of where you want to go. We're going to get into some of the stuff that I saw when I was recruiting for a number of years, some networking traps you should avoid, because these are part of making a negative impression, and I don't want you to do that. So let's take a look at the first trap, which is the I don't want to talk business trap. Now, the scenario here is you're at a career expo. Probably that recruiter will talk to 100 to 200 people in the day. The weather is a big topic of conversation in a casual networking event, and I think that's a great icebreaker. And the weather in Canada is one of the things that you can actually get away with griping about because everyone agrees sometimes the weather, particularly in Calgary, can be pretty bad. The one I was focused in on at a Career Expo is what promotional items do you have? I mean, we all know if you've been to a Career Expo, these booths have promo items they give away. It's okay to take one, but when you have a whole bag full of promotional items and you're walking around grabbing one off of each table, to me it sends a message that you're not really professional. You're not actually really there to engage with recruiters and sort of promote yourself. You're really more interested in their, $1 pen. The monopolizer trap is another good one. Being aware of others around you. So do respect people's time. Don't monopolize an employer for too long, particularly at an event. They're probably going to talk to a lot of people that day. If you're at a Career Expo, I'm going to make 2 suggestions. Number 1, earlier in the day is a lot better. Recruiters are fresh. They're all jazzed up and full of coffee. They're going to give you good conversation. If you come 15 minutes before the end of the event and expect a good conversation, I think you're going to be disappointed. That person's tired, they're run down, they've been talking to people all day. They're just going to give you the bare minimum answers to kind of satisfy you and basically make you go away. So do respect their time. If you're having a long conversation that seems to be going somewhere, I think that's your great opportunity to ask for a follow-up and say, hey, can I follow up with you after this? Maybe ask for a business card, see if you can connect on LinkedIn. The entitlement trap is quite bothersome to recruiters, particularly the last one. What can you do for me? Well, the recruiter's job at an event is not necessarily to assist you. Their job is basically to screen talent. So if you're coming up to them with an ask without giving them some value first, I do believe this is the incorrect way to do it. So an example I'll give you is I've seen very clearly labeled, for example, Bank of Montreal Financial Services. All the employers have their booths with their nice colorful banners behind them. So walking up to that booth and saying, who are you and what can you do for me, it's a little bit ignorant, right? It sends a message you haven't even taken the time to recognize what the employer is or what their industry is. So do a little bit of research and ask a better question than what can you do for me. An example I would give you is, I was doing some research of your company and I see you're hiring a financial analyst in your financial services team. Can you tell me what qualities would make a real successful applicant for that role? And you might get some insider information from that recruiter to make your application stand out. And then lastly, the herd of sheep trap. Again, remember from earlier in the presentation, networking is a one-on-one activity. While networking does happen in groups, what you want to do is engage with people one-on-one and build up a rapport with them. I think this video is worth showing because it does show sort of networking gone wrong, if you will. And again, this is from workandculture.com. So let's take a look at this video.
I'm so glad to meet you. I'm happy it worked out. This is Sonia. I wanted to show you my skills and experience. Here is my resume. Well, maybe after dinner? Sure, I can wait. So, where did you two meet? She presented at the company I used to work for, and I thought, hey, I could do that. So that's why I'm here. I remember everything you said. Excuse me, lady. I remember her. She left after the first training session. You can see I have lots of credentials. I look forward to hearing from you. Sure. Well, I'll let you know if anything comes up.
So it's up there a little bit quick, but basically she messages her on LinkedIn, Facebook, a text message, as well as visits her social media sites quite frequently. She comes on really strong, and the individual actually remembered her because she left after one training session. So again, that negative impression stood out in her mind. I had a very similar situation where I was offering a presentation much like this one. A gentleman abruptly got up 5 minutes into my presentation and stormed out of there. Apparently I said something he really disagreed with. The funny thing was he asked me for some assistance afterwards, about a week later, and I received a LinkedIn connection message. So, yeah, I did not connect with that individual, and I did not provide them with assistance, because if you can't be bothered to sit through someone's presentation, I don't think they're, obligated to necessarily assist you if you're not willing to hear what they have to say. I am wrapping this up, and I thank you for letting me go a little long. Here's the part where I want you to set some realistic networking goals. So, first off, who should you be networking with is not only like-minded professionals. So accountants or engineers shouldn't just be networking with people with the same credentials as them. What you want to do is network up and down. So you want to network with the HR people who are hiring in your industry, as well as you want to network with sort of the lower level staff who might be being managed by these people so that you can possibly get a referral from them. So some goals for career events. Don't go to, say, a networking event or a career event expecting every connection to lead somewhere. And particularly don't necessarily expect a connection to lead to a job right away. They can, as a sort of benefit of networking, and that's the ultimate goal, but don't go in there saying, if I don't get a job after I attend this event, I'm going to be really disappointed in myself and the event. Second thing I'm going to suggest if you go to an event or a networking function is try to make a positive impression with employers or hiring decision makers. Guess what? The recruiters at those booths are hiring decision makers, and I've heard many stories of students approaching the recruiter at a booth who did not have a job opportunity at the time of the event, but lo and behold, 2 weeks to a month later, a job opportunity became available. They connected with the individual at the event, and they made a good impression. So when that opportunity came available, they sent it along to the student or person they met, and that person ultimately ended up getting the job. So it's about making a positive impression first. And I would suggest if you go to a networking event, try to meet 2 or 3 people you haven't met before. And then lastly, I kind of stole my thunder there, try to meet some new contacts. Connect. What you're connecting for is future job opportunities, potentially. A story I would really quickly like to tell you is I met Marie Gervais at I think it was called the Global Talent Conference in Edmonton. And she had a really interesting booth with some video, and it was part of her work and culture workshop program. And we connected, and I didn't really expect the connection to go anywhere, but I did go onto her website and look at some of her modules directed at internationally trained professionals, which was great. About 1 year later to the day, we had a proposal from CPA Canada to build modules for internationally trained professionals. I remembered Marie Gervais and I remembered her models, and we ended up actually partnering on a quite lengthy project to build 7 modules for international professionals. So who knew, right? I mean, that networking connection led to a really good partnership for both of us. And do remember you have a short time frame to make a lasting impression, and I want your lasting impression to be a good one and not a negative one. Lastly, to wrap up, remember your follow-up. So if you have a conversation, an interview, or whatever that may be, thank you goes a long way in Canada. You've heard Canada is the land of thank yous. Send a thank you note after an interview, and a good follow-up that I usually do if I meet people at an event is I send them a thank you email, and I kind of recap what we might have discussed. If you don't know how to follow up with somebody, just ask. Some people might want you to connect on LinkedIn. Some people might be willing to give you a business card. You might be just seeking more information about the company in a coffee-type meeting. And then lastly, I'm going to say the job search can be pretty frustrating. But what I hope I've achieved today is actually got some buy-in from you that, yes, I should be networking, and that your entire job search should not be online. Please don't do that, because the return on investment on your time is going to be very low, and you're going to be really frustrated if all you're doing is firing off applications online. So just try and remember the bigger picture, which is, networking can take some time to pay off, but if you keep at it, it will pay off. I'm going to now turn the presentation back over to Marie so that she can finish up, but I do thank you for your time in sitting through this content.
Thank you very much, Javier. I really appreciated your excellent conversation about networking with everyone, and you have a good sense of humor and lots of wonderful stories. And the reason I asked Javier to present is because I know he's such a good presenter, and I think Javier and I are a good example of networking buddies, because he refers people and jobs to me. I do the same thing to him, we have jointly helped quite a few people to find work. And I think that's the attitude of job seekers that end up getting work as well. If you think of something that you can do for somebody who seems to be interested, then they're more likely to want to do something for you too. So I always look for something I can do for a potential client or for a potential job that's coming up, just to be kind and show interest in that person or that company, and they're usually very interested in reciprocating, and that's how I get the majority of my work. So something to consider as well. But Javier, I was going to ask you one question and then open this up to questions from everybody else, and I'll unmute it in just a minute.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, Javier, if you could provide the participants maybe with one or two quick ideas about how to find some informal networking opportunities. Because the formal ones we know about, but how do they find and capitalize on those informal ones?
Okay. Well, I saw a lot of professional roles in terms of what people were saying their positions were or their desired industry was. I think your professional association, joining them can be a great way to start making some informal connections because, your accountants, your engineers, your physicians, etc., they'll often host events for you where you can all go and, lo and behold, you can actually network with like-minded professionals as well as other individuals in your situation who are working on their accreditation. I think that's one way. The other way is I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn social media, such to the point that we've created a full presentation for that. I think starting your connections and leveraging your LinkedIn profile to actually get your first level connections to introduce you to a second level connection for a coffee or informational interview. So how you do that is basically say to your first level connection who is connected with somebody at a company you'd really like to work for, can you forward this introduction along to this person? And your ask is basically, I'd like to meet with you 10 to 15 minutes of your time for a coffee at your convenience, and I'll buy the coffee. The funny thing that happens is you're not asking for a job, you're just asking for information and their time. Usually they'll meet with you for longer than 15 minutes, and as an added bonus, most of the time, because they know you're a job seeker, they'll buy you the coffee.
That's a great tip. So thank you for answering that. I'm going to unmute everybody so you can...
The conference has been unmuted.
You can either ask a question or you can type one into the chat box, whatever you're more comfortable with. We have somebody that's still on the line has a question about networking or a comment.
Well, I'm getting some thank yous for the webinar, so my pleasure. Again, this session is probably a good hour and a half in full length, so I realize I was really flying through a lot of content, but I do think you got the nuts and bolts of it anyway.
Yeah, well, let's see if some of the people who are still on the line might have a comment or a question. What about Sukra? Do you have anything that you might like to ask or comment on? Or maybe Sarah or Sandy? Looks like people don't have a lot, but they were getting lots of thank yous, so that's good. Some possible things that came up, I think, that Javier offered to do that we might bring him back for would be how to create your elevator speech. So that's your quick speech to be able to give to people about what you do and what you're looking for. And then also how to leverage your LinkedIn profile, which is how many recruiters look for you. And so if you're interested in those two things, perhaps you could put that into the survey when the survey comes up. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say that we do these webinars fairly regularly. We have another one in November coming up, and it's called Rejected Again, Getting Leads from Job Rejections. And there's going to be another presenter besides me, but it's about using rejections rather than just being discouraged from job rejections, how you can use them to get back in. And then we have another one in December, which is generally about understanding the Canadian workplace culture. So, and it's the kinds of things that people say, this is so confusing, I don't get this, I don't get that. And so we're going to answer some of those frequently asked questions. And so we will invite you to upcoming webinars, and we would love it if you would please help us promote them. The more you tell people about it, the better it is for all of us, because these are free webinars, and we want people to be able to take advantage of them. The last thing before we get to the how did you like the webinar slide is that this is a presentation of shift management, and we have a project called Work and Culture Online, which is an online course about workplace culture in Canada, and has really useful tools for job seekers on it about finding the hidden job market. And so take a look at the website and check out the course. And shift management also does supervisor leadership training, e-learning, and assessment. So if any of those things are things you need or that you would be able to recommend to other people, feel free to pass our name along. And finally, if you could just give us a quick how did you like the webinar, then we are going to sign off and thank everybody for being a part of this.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you everyone very much for attending. I hope that you found it useful. And if you have any questions or responses, that would be great. And there will be a follow-up survey to the webinar, and we would love to hear your answers from them. And also, the recording will be available to you and anybody you'd like to pass it on to for the next, it'll be up in probably a day, and then it'll be up for 48 hours after that. So over the next 2 days, you can pass it on. Thanks, everyone, and thank you again very much, Javier. Have a wonderful
you're welcome.
day.
My pleasure, Marie.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.